So once it's, 5:06 on the dot, I think we can start the session. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everybody.
Shola, I think you can start.
All right. Okay, once again, good evening, everyone. And thank you for creating time to join us for another session on our Mind Renewal series today. The speaker for today is no longer a stranger to us because she started this session the last time when we looked at the topic, exploring emotional intelligence and mental health in the workplace. So today we are going to be moving to the part 2 of this conversation. And without preempting, I want to believe that we're going to be zeroing in more on the mental health aspect of this discussion. And just to remind us of our person, let me just quickly give you highlights of our profile before I bring her up for today's session. Ediri Ose Ediale, all right, I believe I pronounced that right. She's the CEO and Chief Executive Director of the Advertisers Association of Nigeria, the only umbrella association in Nigeria to oversee the activities of multinationals and large corporations as it pertains to their marketing activities. Prior to her role at Advent, she was head corporate communications and marketing of a leading insurance conglomerate. She is a certified psychotherapist and clinical counselor with the Institute of Counseling Nigeria, and is also a certified Christian counselor with the Christian Counselors Association of Nigeria. Ediri is the co-founder of the Recharge Life Center, a leadership and well-being establishment, and sits on the board of several NGOs, including WHOLE, Women's Center, and Champions Nest. She serves in advisory capacity to several organizations on strategy, corporate governance, and marketing communications. She also served in various local and international committees towards the enhancement of the marketing profession, and has been invited to lead several conversations as keynote speaker on the role of mental wellness for individuals and in nation-building initiatives. Ediri is a born-again Christian, you will expect, and has a passion for the service of God, and is happily married with children. So ladies and gentlemen, with the Transform Minds kind of welcome, please help me make welcome Mrs. Ediri Ose Ediale as she takes us on the part 2 of this conversation today, focusing on mental health in the workplace. You are most welcome, Mrs. Ose Ediale.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Can everybody hear me? Just want to be sure.
Yes, loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Thank you. So I'm going to just quickly share my screen. Just a minute. Just a second. Okay. Okay. So can everybody see my screen?
Yes, your screen is up, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. So good evening once again. Thank you for having me on this platform. It's such an honor to be back here. And like you said, I spoke a little bit about emotional intelligence the last time I was on the call. And today we're going to be talking about understanding mental health. And I will also tie it into why it's important, whether it's the workplace, or in our general life, why mental health is important. So I just want to confirm, am I clear? Because I don't know if I'm glitching. Can you just confirm if I'm clear? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. I can see you clearly, and I can see your screen also clearly.
Thank you so much. So you may have been hearing a little bit about mental health, before. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a background to say an explanation was in what mental health is. So mental health is not mental health challenges and is not mental illness. Mental health includes your emotional, psychological, and it includes your emotional, your psychological, and your social well-being. So when we talk about your social well-being, we talk about how you interact with people, how you think, how you feel, how you act. So the totality of this that is working optimally is mental health. So your emotions, your thoughts, your psychological well-being, your social well-being, your social interactions are what we talk about, are what we call mental health. Everything that has to do with your mind, everything that has to do with your thoughts, everything that has to do with your emotions, everything that has to do with your interactions with other people has to do with your mental health. Now, there is something called mental health challenges. And I want to help us to differentiate mental health challenges from mental illness. So when we talk about being physically well or physically ill, or let's say talk about being physically ill, it's a spectrum. So for instance, if you have a headache, you're physically unwell because you have a headache, but it's not really a big illness. But if you can have something that is maybe much more serious than a headache. So when you talk about mental health, it's the same thing that applies. So when you say like you have a mental health challenge, it could just be that your emotions are a little bit all over the place. It could be that you're stressed. It could be that you're unnecessarily anxious. It doesn't mean that you need to go to a mental institution. It doesn't mean that you have schizophrenia or you're a psychotic. They're two different things. So mental illness and mental health challenges are different, are totally different. Most of the things I'm going to be talking about today are mental health challenges. And this is because the causes can be prevented. And there are solutions in helping us overcome them and live a better life. When it comes to mental illness, there's more of a chemical imbalance issue there, which is more of something that a psychiatrist would need to handle. It's beyond helping you with your emotions or helping you with your thoughts or helping you, interact better. So that is why I'm going to be focusing on that. The other side of it, which is a mental illness, is something that one needs to get proper diagnosis from a psychiatrist, a doctor, and proper treatment, which may include psychotherapy, which is talk therapy, and drugs. But today, that's medication for it. But today, I'm going to be focusing mainly on mental health challenges because that is what plagues all of us as individuals daily. We have these issues that affect us daily. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on. Now, what are the causes of mental health issues? Childhood trauma. I tell people that I always take my time to mention childhood trauma as a cause because a lot of people are walking around with mental health issues that were caused when they were children. So if there are failed parenting structures where you are taught certain values of life, where you are kept safely, where you are loved, where you are disciplined, if that is not available, that person can grow up with some mental health issues. It could be emotional mental health issues or attitudinal mental health issues. I have a case I'm working on now where I was invited by the mother of some children because she had constant, episodes of physical altercations with her husband while the children were young. And she had repeated calls from the school. They're a bit older now. So she has had repeated calls from the school that these children emotionally are not doing very well. And she said she suspects that they are looking at the issues between her and her husband when they were much younger has affected them. And she's absolutely correct. So I've spoken to them. They are extremely withdrawn, low self-esteem, and it's not even helping their schoolwork. So childhood trauma, failed parental structures is a leading cause of mental health issues. But there's also adult trauma. So what is an adult trauma? Any negative events that impacts you. It could be an accident. It could be bereavement. It could be sickness. It could be loss of finances, loss of a job. It's trauma. We call some the big trauma and the small trauma. So small trauma is maybe something about your job. Maybe you lost a contract or something. But the big trauma is more like maybe like an accident or bereavement of a loved one. Those are big trauma. And so that's another cause of mental health issues. So I even put bereavement and loss, but those are all, they can also fall under trauma. Discrimination, I put it there that, there's something called collective trauma. There's even things called transgenerational trauma, where a group of people face certain negative situations. Like I put the women in certain climes, women are talked down on, seen as second-class citizens. This can cause trauma, low self-esteem, depression, hopelessness. And it's important that as a culture and as a people, we begin to learn about these things, because I think in Nigeria, our heads have kind of been in the sand, like the proverbial ostrich, that our head has been in the sand in understanding these things. And because we're such a religious society, we do not even take our time to get the context of what the issues are with our women, with our children, with our youths. I put like the Black race, where in countries where they are predominantly white, there's stigmatization and discrimination. This causes mental health issues. Substance abuse. I don't know if I mentioned the last time I was on the call, that when we're stressed, life can be stressful. Coming back today, I know how long I was in traffic. Sometimes if you're not careful, we try to cope with stress. You can cope with stress with mechanisms that are unhealthy. So if you come home and you're tired, maybe as a mother, I came home and I saw my whole house untidy, and I want to, relax. And I decided I want to start taking maybe alcohol or, do certain things. I might be creating a problem that is even worse than what I'm trying to cure. And some people go to drugs, some people go to alcohol. They start it because there's something wrong. There's something traumatic or emotional that they are trying to, feel better about. So they look for coping mechanisms that become a problem. So substance abuse can, one of the causes as well. And I said emotional and physical abuse. Physical abuse is very clear. Emotional abuse, not so clear. But it's also very rampant. If you're in a home with someone that consistently brings you down, insults you, gaslights you, mocks you, and this situation could be, and I'm going to be very practical, because whenever I'm giving platforms like this, because I am a Christian and I believe this is a Christian platform, I believe that the Holy Spirit wants to help. So this emotional abuse could be at home between husband and wives, wife and husband, parents and children, children and parents, because we have adult children, and there could be emotional abuse. It could be at work where you're the boss, and emotional abuse can be coming from you. So please understand that we should also check ourselves. So if you are constantly putting somebody down, belittling them, if they do something wrong, there's no sandwich approach to saying, oh yes, you did something, you did okay, this is not so good, but you're okay. And you're just outright saying negative things to them. That's emotional abuse. So it can be found at work. Emotional abuse can be found in faith-based institutions, in the church. Because sometimes we have leaders that are pastors that twist the word of God, to defend wrong, unacceptable behavior. I don't believe that when God puts leadership structures, he put it there to bully anybody. I don't believe that when God said a woman should submit to her husband, that the man has the full reign of bullying her. That is not what it means. But sometimes we find emotional abuse in the church. There was a time I went for a women program, and it was a women's leaders program. And all the questions were coming from pastors' wives, anonymous. Madam, keep me anonymous. This is what I'm going through. So it's important we talk about this and don't put our head in the sand. I have one or two more that are in my notes that are not here. I said, okay, social disadvantage, failed societal structures can cause mental health issues. Definitely. In our society today, we see that we have to kind of struggle. There has not been electricity for so many days. So you can imagine those that do not have like a generator, those that do not have things to, kind of augment this life we're living. You can imagine how they would feel. They are hot, they are frustrated, they are tired. It can affect their mental health as well. Then the last two things I have here is actually physiological issues. That do you know that if you're physically sick, it can impact your mental health. And sometimes you don't even know. You just say, I'm feeling a little bit off. And then by the time you're not checking up, and oh, you might have malaria or a fever or something. So your physical health impacts your mental health, just the way your mental health impacts your physical health. And another thing I would say to us, that it's also critical is diet. Your diet affects your mental health. You cannot live life on fast food and sugar. It is directly, or alcohol, it is directly affecting your health, both physical and mental. If you take a cup of soda or sugary drink or alcohol, there's a high and then you drop. And when you drop, if you're not careful, if you can't manage it, you want to take another one, and it's impacting you because it's kind of realigning your brain, its sensors. And at a point in time, that one bottle of drink is no longer enough to get the feeling that one used to get before. So you now look for 2, 3, 4, 5, and you are edgy and you are kind of, because you just need this thing to calm down. It's affecting your mental health. So just to recap, childhood trauma, please, very critical. The way we raise our children, the way we were raised is causing some of us mental health issues, the way we were raised. And because our parents thought discipline was in a particular way. If that loving, secure home was not available, there was abuse, whether physical or emotional, those children may be going through mental health issues. And you see it in schools. If you go to schools and you walk into a class, you will notice the ones that come from a good home. And that home doesn't have to be, it could be one parent, it could be two parents, but you can see that this one comes from a good home. And this one comes from a home where there is no adequate oversight. Adult trauma, if you've gone through something that was a very big negative incident, whether it's bereavement, loss, illness, it can be affecting your mental health. Failed parental structures, I said about childhood trauma, inability to manage self and have healthy relationships, it can affect your mental health. So just a minute, let me just continue. substance abuse, and then emotional and physical abuse. Those can impact your mental health. Now, quickly, I want to identify some types of mental health issues, and I've put them into two parts. There's emotional issues and attitudinal issues. Now, for the emotional issues, I need to make this clear. Most of the items I'm going to raise, some of them, not all, are emotions we feel every day. It doesn't mean you have a mental health issue. However, for you to understand when it becomes a problem is when the frequency is so much and the intensity is more than you can manage. So I'll take that again. You may have some of this as normal responses because we have these emotions to protect us. I mean, if you're angry, is a normal response. If you're stressed, is a normal response. Stress can, motivate you to do your best. Oh, I need to deliver on the project. Stress is not bad in itself. It can be like a pivot to pivot you into doing what you need to do. Anxiety is also normal because, I mean, it's normal for you to be concerned about certain things. There's nothing wrong with it. When it becomes a problem is when the intensity is so strong and the frequency is so much. So I want to just go into the emotional issues. So these are some types of mental health issues. Like I told you, when you talk about mental health issues, we're not talking about those that have to go to a mental health institution or a psychiatric hospital that has schizophrenia or various, are psychotic. These everyday emotional challenges or issues, if you do not manage them, they can impact the quality of your life. So anxiety, you're anxious, you can't calm down, you don't know how to bring yourself to an equilibrium. You find that you're always anxious. There's something we call, I talked about cognitive distortions the last time I was here. So there's another one I want to bring to us. It's called it's a way of thinking that you always see everything as a calamity. That, okay, maybe your husband calls and says, my flight is about to take off from so airport, and you immediately start seeing the worst, or your child says, I'm on my way to school. It's called catastrophizing. Everything is a catastrophe. You're always anxious. You always see something bad is about to happen. It's a mental health issue. It's a mental health issue that you believe everything's going to end in a catastrophe. Is a cognitive distortion, and the name is catastrophizing. So anxiety, elevated forms of anxiety, is a mental health issue. Stress is a mental health issue where you cannot manage stress. I think Madam Jumoke was on the call when I was speaking to the Winning Edge class, and I said there was a particular lady that went into a supermarket and had an altercation with one of the people that were selling. And she started screaming and, the management came and calmed her down and said, oh, it's okay, it's fine. And she kept on screaming. At that point, it was not the issue at the supermarket that was making this lady scream. She couldn't control herself. She had snapped. So if you think, oh, it's just stress, I'm fine. If you don't manage it, you can snap, and snapping may be emotional, or it may even be physical, where your body, because there's a direct connection with some of these emotional issues and some physical sickness. I have a client I am working with that tries to harm herself. And in our course of intervention, in my working with her, I found out that what was wrong with her was elevated forms of anxiety. She was anxious about life. She told me, oh, she lived in my father's house. My father is ill. If he dies, where will I live? When will I make enough money to buy my own house? When will I get married? She had so allowed herself to be consumed that she now got to a point where she had to physically harm herself because she was overwhelmed by anxiety. So that is why sometimes we need to quickly identify these mental health issues so that we can check them. Phobias. Phobias is like an intense form of fear where it starts with, I don't really like this thing. And it gets to a point, I cannot stand this thing. It starts little and it gets to a point where if you're not careful, you find out, I can't do this thing. I can't do this. I can't find myself in this environment. I think I've mentioned it before that I have another client, a young man that cannot go on Third Mainland Bridge on his own. And this is what I'm saying. It's not people that are in hospital. There are people that are at work. You won't know because they don't tell you. He says, anytime I'm getting on the bridge, I have this intense fear that I can't control. He says, I even have intense fear about going into streets that I don't know. I don't know why I feel they're going to attack me. So I had to begin to unpack where those fears were coming from. And it must have just started as, well, something happened, maybe I don't know whether on the bridge or as a child, and he didn't check it, he didn't manage it. He now came out to a full-blown phobia where it was impacting the quality of his life. Emotional issues like PTSD. PTSD is our response to past trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I talked about trauma as a child. And you think about us as Africans and Nigerians, we think we're fine. Okay, it happened, but I'm fine. Time heals. Time doesn't always heal. Time doesn't always heal. And that is why, and for you to know it doesn't always heal, you find yourself, maybe you have been hurt in another relationship. Maybe you were single, you were hurt. And you're now married and your new spouse is fine, but you can't trust. You feel that the same thing is going to happen. It's because you didn't deal with the trauma of the fact that you were hurt. Or it could have been anything. Maybe you were ill and now you're better. But you cannot just overcome that fear. So maybe, for instance, let me give like an example. Maybe the day you went somewhere and the next day was when you felt ill. You now associate that environment as a trigger for illness. So you avoid it. Avoid it. That's PTSD. So anytime you see a street that looks like the streets that you were the day before you felt ill or before the person felt ill, the person begins to be afraid. That's PTSD. Yeah, they have associated that location with sickness. So, and maybe people that were physically abused, emotionally abused, sexually abused, they have forms of PTSD. I was in a church where I was talking about how to protect children from rape. And I had a note that said, my daughter was molested, she was raped, and we caught the person, and the person is in jail. My daughter is now telling me that we should release that person because she wants to date the person. That lady's idea of healthy relationships has been totally bastardized. And I told them that girl needs intense psychotherapy. Intense. We don't just push some of these things away. You need to investigate them. When your children tell you, I'm being bullied in school, don't just push it away. I'm telling you that when they're older, they will say, I told my mommy I was being bullied and she didn't do anything about it. I told my daddy I was being bullied and he didn't do anything, and do anything about it. And that child may become afraid. So emotional issues include depression. You're just in a low mood and you can't snap out of it. Negative thoughts are just flooding your head. Don't think it is normal. Don't think it is normal to think negative thoughts from morning till night. Don't think it is normal, because you might be setting yourself up for something that is more than you can handle if you don't check those negative thoughts. Oh, Nigeria is bad. This economy is, marriage is a scam. Men are demons. Women are useless. Just flooding your mind with all sorts of negativity. It can lead to depression, suicidal ideation, where someone feels completely hopeless, that they don't feel the need to live anymore. Emotional outbursts. I just talked about that experience I had in that supermarket where the lady couldn't control herself anymore. It had welled up in her, things that maybe she thought, yeah, I'm fine. And she got to a point that somebody did something and she snapped. When you hear that this wife killed her husband, It's probably that she had been having thoughts of anger towards him. She didn't check it. So he came home one day and said, honey, pass this the salt. And she stabs him. Emotional outbursts because they were unchecked emotions. Or maybe it was not even as quiet as that. Maybe he now did something and she couldn't control herself. If you go to all these police stations and prisons and you say, why did you do it? I can't remember. I lost my temper. Emotional issues, they're mental health issues. You know, guilt, you're feeling guilty, you know, and your mood is low, completely low. Sleep is not supposed to be here, but, you know, I'll talk about sleep later. And then what about attitudinal issues? You know, I talked about the fact that failed parental structures lead to emotional, mental health issues. So I grouped it into emotional issues and attitudinal issues. So when you have someone that is consistently with, you know, thinking from a low self-esteem perspective, something happened to this person. It wasn't just born like that. I know I teach that everything we hold as true, we learned. Everything that makes us, we learned either by direct education or by conditioning. You know what conditioning is? Conditioning is that you're sitting down and you hear that women's role is in the kitchen. Nobody's telling you. You're seeing on television as an advert that shows a woman in the kitchen. You're hearing your uncles, Mama, Sylvester, I go to the kitchen and bring this. You're being conditioned to believe that women should be in the kitchen. You're being conditioned to believe that they should dress in a particular way. What you hold as truth may not be global truth. So if someone that has low self-esteem, something happened. That person was not just created and born into this world with so low self-esteem. Maybe they had consistent emotional abuse as a child. Maybe even growing up, they've had some nasty experiences with individuals that they now begin to question, you know, their own abilities, you know, question themselves. Narcissism, where they're never wrong. You have a child that has been doted on. The child is not disciplined. You know, we have there's one, when I was talking about this one, someone said we have a narcissist as the president or former president of one of the countries that I don't want to mention names. Where do you think he came from? Failed parenting, where you didn't correct certain behaviors and notions to say, no, that is unacceptable. That is unacceptable. You doted on the child to the point where the child was never wrong, and the child feels like I can never be wrong. It's a mental health issue. It's a mental health issue. When you gaslight, you must have your way. You must have your way. It's not a normal behavior. Let's not just accept that's the way I am, or that's not the right way to be. And then I talked about inability to trust or form meaningful relationships. Are also mental health issues when you don't trust anybody. When you don't trust anybody, we need to check it because it came from somewhere. Maybe people have disappointed you, you know, maybe as an adult or maybe growing up, your parents disappointed you. You had absentee parents, or your parents were there, but there was no love, there was no trust, there was no bond. And then growing up, you now went into relationship with friends that were even just as bad. And now you find it difficult to be in a meaningful relationship. It's a mental health issue. So quickly, I want to talk about how to identify, whether it's about you or by other people. And like I said, mental health issues can just be like a headache. Sometimes we need to check ourselves. And you can also use this to identify if other people, you know, are also around you to say, oh, this person may be going through one or two things. So I said consistent emotional outbursts. If you see somebody that is around you that is always shouting, that is always angry, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. Emotional outbursts, as in the intensity of the response is not parallel to what happened. Is it this small thing that is allowing this person to cry? It's not that thing. Something else has snapped. Irrational fear or anxiety, where you're consistently afraid. You know, I talked about catastrophizing as a cognitive distortion. where you see a catastrophe in every situation. Like, look at what happened now. And it's such a sad, sad event. What happened with the CEO of Axis Bank? Because you see, trauma can be primary or secondary trauma. So what that means is that primary trauma is that it happened to you. Secondary is that you heard or it happened to somebody you know. Do you know that if some people are not careful, they will be having traumatic episodes or PTSD on what happened to the CEO of Access Bank? We don't understand that. That's why I will caution people to watch videos, caution people to read stories, because you don't know how this thing impacts you. Irrational fear, if they now say, oh, let's go and say, I will never go. Why? Because something happened. You have now based your whole life's existence on one episode. Not to say that things don't happen, accidents don't happen, but is that your fear or anxiety? Is it rational? Probably not. So sleep issues, this is where sleep is supposed to come in. I'm talking about how to identify mental health issues in you or others. When you see someone that can't sleep, you need to find out why. And I said inability to form meaningful relationships, addiction to food, drugs, pornography, social media. An addiction to social media is a mental health issue. And let me talk about an addiction. An addiction is a consistent habit that you cannot control, even when you see it is detrimental to your well-being. I'll say that again. An addiction is a consistent habit that you engage in and cannot control, even when you find out that it is detrimental and negative to you. There's a cycle of addiction, which is craving, indulging, satisfaction, and then regrets. There's a cycle of addiction. So you crave for something, you crave for it, and then you engage in it, and you are satisfied. Then you start feeling regret. That is how to identify addiction. If I show you the picture of an addicted brain and a picture of a normal brain, they don't look the same. I'm sorry, I don't have it here. I would have shown it, but I'm not talking about addiction. I normally put that up when I'm talking about addiction. If you see the picture of a normal brain, you see different lights. Those are the neurotransmitters. They are working effectively. The picture of an addicted brain is very dull. That means functioning is not as optimal. So addiction is a mental health issue. Whether it is social media, whether it is food, food is, you can be addicted to food, whether it is drugs or drink or pornography or sex, these are addictions. And they are pointers to mental health issues. Long bouts of depressive episodes. You can't just snap out of, I've been on a slump for a while and I can't snap out of it. It's a telltale sign. Or willingness to socialize. I just want to be on my own. Sometimes after COVID, because I belong to the Institute of Counseling of Nigeria, after COVID, we had to kind of drag and force people to come out because we're now used to being at home, So if you have allowed that habit for too long, it may become a problem. We were created to be in relationships in one structure or the other. We're not created to be in silo, to live alone. So at least I'm not saying you should be the life of the party. You should be going to parties every night, but there should be some kind of interaction because it helps. Neglect of personal hygiene is a very strong telltale sign. Reduced performance, whether at school, whether at work, that your performance is not as it used to be. It's a telltale sign. Something is wrong. High risk behavior. That's a telltale sign for suicidal ideation and depression. I don't mind, hey, let's drive this car so fast. You see, sometimes with teenagers, okay, I want to do this. I don't care. That person may be going through something. I don't care. This country is so stupid. I'm going to just go and do what I like. I'm tired of this marriage. I'm tired of this, work. High risk behavior is an indication that there may be a deeper problem. And strange and irrational thoughts. So if someone starts telling you that, I had someone that came into my office that he said, when I see chandeliers or hanging lights, I just think, can I just tie a rope and can I just hang myself there? I had someone that came into my office that was telling me that. Those are strange, irrational thoughts, strange thoughts. They are telltale signs. And I want to, quickly go to this so that if there are questions, I can take it. So what can be done to prevent, improve, and cure? And the good thing is that most of these things I have talked about, it can be prevented, it can be improved, and it can even be cured, if you follow the right steps. So what can we do? So it's important that we as individuals, we know how to protect ourselves, and our mental health. So I talked about prayer, study, fellowship with God. Now, I've been talking about mental health from a psychotherapy, psychological perspective, but I need to say this because I believe I'm talking to a Christian group, that one of the things that hinders a lot of people from understanding these issues is because they feel all mental health issues are spiritual issues. They are not. It's not every mental health issue that is a demonic issue. That you are stressed is not a demonic issue. That you were emotionally abused by someone and you feel anxious, it might not be a demonic issue. So people assume that there is no solution apart from prayer. So this is what I will say. Prayer is a solution. However, while you pray, just like when you're praying and you're taking an anti-malaria, while you pray, if there are some steps to help you reduce your anxiety, please use those steps. If there are steps that will say help you to improve your mood, like I talked about diet, you cannot be eating snacks and sugar and alcohol, and you think your mood will be fine. You can go on every mountain, and your mood will still be down. That is why in the book of Daniel, he said that at a time that knowledge will abound. This is the knowledge that God is giving us to help us. Believe that all knowledge to help comes from God. Satan will never give you any knowledge to help you. So do not think that psychotherapy is from Satan. I'm a psychotherapist, and if there's any teaching or any education that tries to negate the sovereignty of God, I don't go near it. But it's the Bible that tells us that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a tool of psychotherapy, tells you that one of the ways I can help you is if I can change the irrational thoughts in your mind. So what God has explained, they have come to give you the granular, or what God has said, they have come to give you the granular explanation of these things. And so that when you are going to God, you can say, God, I know I'm traumatized. I know I did not have a good relationship with my dad, and that is why I'm not having a good relationship with my husband. Oh God, I know that I have exposed myself to certain addictive behaviors. You have the explanation of what you're praying about. So why I said prayer and study and fellowship with God, do you know that in psychology, prayer is one of the things they talk about in bringing down anxiety and stress? They don't talk about it that it must be Jesus Christ, but they accept that prayer is effective. But we that are believers, we understand that when you are in the presence of God, there's healing. There's the word comes out that can help you for that time. So pray and study the word of God. And when you identify the specific challenges, then you can even tell God, Lord, I am having post-traumatic stress to what happened to me. Help me. And then if there are some certain exercises and skills, to help you, use them as well. There's nothing wrong. It doesn't take away the sovereignty of God. The devil will never give you any skill to make your emotions better. So psychotherapy does not come from Satan. Intentional parenting. So that is to prevent. At this point in time, we need to be careful how we manage our children. Be careful to the things they are saying to you when they come back from school. I had a client that the children told me that they're being bullied in school. And the funny thing, when they come back from school, their mother says the same thing. She'll say, you're fat, you're ugly. You're already raising a child that is going to have emotional and mental health issues in the future. So intentional parenting. Unlearn to relearn. One of the tenets of CBT, I use CBT. CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, is that we teach you how to unlearn irrational and negative thought patterns. We teach you how to unlearn negative behavior and we learn appropriate. We don't talk about positive thinking as psychotherapists. We talk about appropriate and accurate thinking. Because if sometimes anger is an appropriate thinking, it's sometimes appropriate to be angry. It's appropriate to be afraid. So we're not saying that just be positive from dusk till dawn. No, appropriate. But unlearn negative ones and relearn the right ones. The quality of your life, I've talked about that so many times. Your diet is very critical. And you see, it doesn't have to be a fad diet. It doesn't have to be anything that says, don't do this or don't do that, jump here, or don't, no, nothing. Just eat as whole foods as possible. Any of the foods. It could be rice, beans, gari, yam. I'm not trying to say be a vegetarian or a vegan or go to keto. No. What I'm saying is if you can eat well and that you can exercise, it impacts to a large percentage your mental health. And diet is there. It's very critical. You know, you don't, I mean, we have our fathers and mothers are in the villages that live up to 95. They don't do keto, they don't do vegan. But what they also do is that they eat food from the farm and they are very active. So they don't open cans to eat food. They don't open bottles and, you know, paper, Indomie, all those, or go to restaurants and eat all those things that have all those kind of salt and sugar. They don't eat those things. So eat food that is prepared as, you know, healthily as well. It could be anything. I'm not advocating for any diet. Sleep is very important. You need to sleep. You need to rest. You need to rest. When the unfortunate incident happened to the CEO of Access, the next day they have written that we're coming up with a replacement. Yes, it was not sickness that it happened to me, but I'm just trying to tell you that if you think that I must do this work, I am not going to rest. God forbid, the replacement will come in like 48 hours. So sleep, rest, have quality interactions. Please have times you spend with loved ones. In fact, there's an article on my page when I was talking about stress. I said spend time with elderly and children. I said because it just gives you a different perspective of life. Elderly people have such a wealth of wisdom and they are very calm, at least the ones that have wisdom. They are calm. They slow you down a bit from this rat race. They kind of slow you down. They say, I've seen this is what happened. Just calm down. And for children are so, you know, they are so naturally funny. So quality interactions with loved ones, challenge irrational thoughts. When I'm a failure, challenge it. Why? Because you failed. That makes you a failure. That is all of us in this world, we're all failures. There was a lady that told me that I'm awkward. I said, give me the definition of awkward. And when she brought her phone and brought the definition, there were about 10 definitions. I said, how many applies to you? She said, maybe 1 or 2. I said, so is it right to say all of us as human beings, we can be awkward in certain situations? It doesn't mean you are awkward. Challenge irrational thoughts and definitions in your head. Because you think it does not make it true. You can be thinking something and it can be an outright lie. And the funny thing is that you can be thinking it about yourself and it's an outright lie. Challenge irrational thoughts and then remove stressors. What are the things that are making you stressed? You need to identify them so that you can, as much as you can, you need to remove yourself from them. So I think I have kind of covered. This is thank you from me. And, you know, maybe, I don't know if there are questions, so we can take the questions now. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ma, for this very enlightening and also insightful session. I've listened to different conversations around this mental health before, but I think there's a way, something about the way you have put it across to us that is, at least I can accept now that whether you like it or not, almost virtually everybody needs to pay attention to this subject. It's not something to be stigmatized. It's not something to be shy about. It's something to be addressed the same way we would address any anomaly that we observe either in our body or around us. And I think it's very, very important. Thank you so much. I love the fact that you also said, because we are Christians, all right, we tend to always fit everything, or sometimes also over spiritualize everything. I love the fact that you've been able to at least caution us that for the fact that I'm taking Panadol for my headache doesn't mean that I lack faith, doesn't mean that I don't believe in God. But again, I love the fact that you are able to let us know that God already promised us and gave us the prophecy for the future and the times that we are living now, that, you know, knowledge will abound, all right? What is the essence of knowledge if it cannot help life, all right? And I believe everything still comes from God. So thank you so much, Ma, for, I missed the emotional intelligence part, but this particular one, it's a very, is a good eye opener for me as a person. And I think at this point, I would love for us to engage. In fact, first and foremost, let us go into the chat room and appreciate our dear sister, Ediri Ose Ediali. All right, please go into the chat room. Let us say thank you, if that's the only thing we can say first, before we open the floor for one or two questions or clarifications, as well as contribution. Thank you so much, Ma. Really appreciate your time and for sharing from your wealth of professional experience with us.
Thank you.
Okay. Please, let's appreciate our dear sister in the chat room. And I'm waiting for, okay, Doug, your hand is up. You can unmute and engage.
Yeah, thank you very much. Madam, first of all, I want to thank you especially for actually heeding the call to come back, because I think I was one of those that really advocated that you come back that first time. I thought that what you shared was very insightful. And I actually had to drag all my kids into the room to listen to this session today, so they're all here with me now.
Wow.
No, I think it's really important. My kids are teenagers, and there's a lot that you've said that I feel applies to them and to me as a parent as well. I would just want to say this, and maybe, you know, this is for you. I do think it's important. I don't know if you have these type of sessions also in high schools where you go and speak to young kids. I think it's very important.
Okay.
And, you know, with your permission, I will, you know, would like to get your contact from either Sister Jumoke or anyone else. There is a youth community that I am a part of that I would like them to hear from you as well. I think there's too much that you've shared today that I feel can help the young growing society today in identifying some of the problems or some of the signs that they are already exhibiting, right? It's very important that they identify, but that we parents or elders or guardians also identify as well. So thank you very much. I just wanted to point that out, and I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I look forward to being part of the youth program. I do speak. In fact, I am the counselor for several schools, you know, where I go and talk to children, and sometimes where there are issues, they invite me. So I do a lot of things with the Rotary Club that does things for schools around different neighborhoods. So I'm happy to. I'm very happy to. So I think Madam Jumoke has my number. I'm happy to speak.
All right, thank you so much. Ra Adebiyi, please, over to you. Your hand is up.
Okay, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, ma'am. I hope you can hear me.
Sorry, I said brother, sister Olubukola. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. I really want to commend you and appreciate you for this extremely insightful session. I've listened to a lot of mental health speakers, and I mean, when you have the Christ component in it, it stands out in a special way. God bless you and continue to increase you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
I do a lot of counseling too, and one of the things that comes to mind is what you just said about stress triggers, and I'm concerned about how to handle cases where the stress trigger for the person is actually someone very close. You hear women complain about the husband being the stress trigger. Sometimes it's a child. So how do they manage, how do you separate that kind of person from the stress trigger?
Okay.
Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you so much. So you said it all. The best way is to remove the person from the trigger. However, that is not always that option is not always there. So what you can do, especially if it is like a wife to a husband, is teach the person to politely set boundaries. So if a woman is married to a narcissistic husband or a bully, she can, so far it's not physical, because if it's physical abuse, there's a totally different conversation around that. We are talking about stressors as maybe it's emotional abuse or someone that is stressing that is not a physical, that is not trying to physically harm the person. So if it's like emotional, and if it's like a child as well, maybe a child to other children, you can teach the child or the woman boundaries, how to politely set boundaries, to say to her husband, if you begin to yell at me, I am sorry, I will have to walk away. Because we cannot have a conversation like this. You're upset, I'm upset, but there's an appropriate way. Please I'm saying respectfully, because I am a Proverbs 31 woman. I'm a happily married woman. I'm not advocating all those feminism and all that. I understand that there are challenges in marriages, but I'm not advocating rudeness. But you can set boundaries politely. And the funny thing is that when you can set those boundaries is when the person is not even angry. To say, or when the person is not doing anything, I say, yesterday we had a conversation and I noticed, this. We need to not do that again. And if I see that it's escalating, I'm going to have to walk away. I'm not trying to disrespect you. I'm not trying to be rude. I'll need to walk away. And you can set the boundaries in so many other ways to say, I'm not going to go down this path with you. I'm not going to do this. She needs to say, or whoever needs to set boundaries, because maybe you cannot remove themselves. And the truth is that if you can remove yourself for a day or two, remove yourself for a day or two. I say, I just need a few days to myself to go and reset so I don't go crazy, I don't lose it. But what I would say is that when you cannot remove yourself, set boundaries. For children, it's a very delicate thing if the person that is causing the stress is the parent. What I would do as a psychotherapist, and what you can do as an educationist, is to build their self-esteem as much as you can. Tell them it's not right that anybody insults you. It's not right that they say you are foolish. It's not right. Tell them that they should not see that as a normal behavior, that someone is consistently bringing you down. You just need to kind of just, when they say immune booster, as much as you can, when you're with that person, pump into them mood boosters, self-esteem boosters, because I know they're going back into a toxic environment and there's really nothing you can do. And as a nation, we really don't have those systems that can, support the children. So what you can do is just pump a lot of positive information into that child. Tell the child you are beautiful, you are kind, that if anybody is telling you you're ugly or you're stupid, it's not the right way. And I believe that very soon you will come out of it. So, and you can even do that for the women as well, because I also teach a lot of women that are in emotional abusive relationships. I mean, men too are in emotionally abusive relationships, that you need to be the one to put a lot of confidence in yourself. You need to begin to reiterate to yourself that you are enough, that you are good, you are worth it, you're not a waste of space, you're not a waste of time, whatever it is. Pump those words of affirmation into yourself and teach the child. And then if it's where you can set boundaries and say, we will not insult ourselves, we will not yell at ourselves, we're not breaking anything, we're not going to, I'm not going to agree for you to insult me in public. If you start yelling at me in public, I'm going to walk away. I'm not an animal. We don't talk to ourselves like that. And when you're doing that, the person involved needs to also be respectful. Let the other person see that you are respectful, but just that, I'm not going to take this, politely. You need to set boundaries. So the two things I would tell you is that when you cannot remove yourself from stressors, is that you need to set boundaries. Let them know that you know. Let them know that as much as I love you, care for you, I'm not going to accept this. We need to disagree, or in a polite and respectful way, that we can still come back and love each other. And for the children that are going into those kind of homes and there's nothing you can do about it, pump their self-esteem as much as you can. You are beautiful, you are loved, you are an excellent child. Give them stories of children that had bad backgrounds and they came out tops. You know, give them stories, tell them how much God loves them, how much God is rooting for them, how no matter what anybody says, so far God says that they are good, they're good. That's what I'm saying. I hope that helps.
Mr. Olubukola.
Okay, I think maybe her call went.
All right. I think it's that was good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, but hello, can you hear me? Well, that was perfect.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you as well. Thank you as well.
All right. Our time is fast spent. I don't know if Mr. Wright would like to say one or two things before we bring the session to a close, sir.
Yes. Thank you so much, Adiri, as usual. It was quite inspiring, very inspiring, and I'm glad that people are asking for an opportunity to get in touch with you after this program.
Yes.
That's your lessons. That's your lessons, actually, to empower people through these sessions and to build a network that can be mutually beneficial. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God will continue to bless your ministry, because it's a major ministry.
Amen.
And of course, I'm tempted, I look at the time, I'm just tempted me to postpone the question, because what I was going to say was that we have a child that keeps giving excuses later in life that he had or she had a challenging childhood. And he or she is not taking responsibility for his life. What do you advise the person to do? Number one. Number two, the spiritual connotation or spiritual perspective in sort of bouncing back from childhood experiences. Are there references in the Bible that you would like us to share? I mean, I would say I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. It's a new day. Like the growth of latter you first surpass the former and all that. But are there things that you can share from the scriptures that can be of help to someone who may have had challenging past and bullied and all that stuff? Yeah.
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is Joseph. You know, so
okay.
Joseph was bullied by his brothers. He was sold. That is enough to cause anybody a mental health issue. And I'm sure if we go down the scripture, we'll see other examples. That's just the first one that's coming to my head. You know,
right?
And you know, learning to, you know, even though he went through that, he still went and kept his morals. He was still able to overcome that. So just to say that, number one, the fact that you had a bad childhood is not a death sentence to a life of mental health challenges. And I'm sure if I go through the scripture, I'm sure I will find so many others. And then the person you're talking about, I think whoever is dealing with that person, that one is blaming childhood. The person may have just found a reason to be lazy. You know, that may just be an excuse. So whoever is dealing with that person, you need to be patient with that person, and then say, you know, that kind of guide the person, say, okay, so now that you're an adult, okay, this was done to you, it was wrong. We're not saying you should become the president of Nigeria. We're not saying you should become the president of America. But we can say within, okay, what you have now, what would you like to do? What can you do? So that has happened. It was sad that it happened to you, but you are now XY age. And okay, maybe you're saying, because my parents didn't do this to me, I'm now not able to become this. Okay, fine, don't become that. But become responsible enough to yourself and to your immediate society. Can you do that? You know, so give them small tasks, small expectations. Don't let the expectations of that person be too great, because the people will always be disappointed. So, okay, what can you achieve? Okay, can you manage this assignment? Can you make sure you ensure this house is tidy? Can I leave this thing in your charge? You know, can we grow from there? And then that person may need help. So one of the things I didn't say at the end is that when I gave you how to cure, prevent, and improve, the last thing I said, looking for mental health practitioners like me is not a stigma, it's a solution. Just like a medical doctor. So at a point in time, that person may need to be released to a counselor, a professional.
Yeah.
counselor. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I think really, Shola, over to you. I mean, it's been wonderful as usual, and thank God for accepting a second invitation. And maybe before I hand over to
Anytime.
Shola, maybe I hand over to Shola. Adiri,
All right.
I'm inviting you specially to join us.
Okay.
Transform Mind.
Okay,
I can't.
I would love to. So maybe just tell me what I need to do to join. I would love to join.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Jumoke will take care of that.
They'll reach out to me.
Okay,
That's
but
fine.
Yes.
certainly we'll
That's
follow.
Yes.
Thank
Yes,
you so
we'll
much.
reach
All
out.
right. Thank
Okay,
you. Thank you
thank
so
you very
much
much. God bless
once
you.
again. And we want to pray with you and for you that the good
Yes.
Lord will continue to use you, continue to make you a
Amen.
channel of blessings to many and a channel of restoration to different individuals and homes in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
That
Amen.
the light of the Lord will continue to shine on you,
Amen.
shine on your
Amen.
path, and cause you to really
Amen.
be the light for
Amen.
the world in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thank you so much
Amen.
for honoring our invitation. And we believe that there will be many more opportunities for us to collaborate with what you do as well as what we do. And we'll continue to make impact together. Thank you so much.
All right.
God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
Good-
Thank you.
good night.
Thank you,
Good
everyone.
Thank you,
night,
for
everybody,
attending.
for joining.
Thank
Enjoy the
everyone
rest
for
of your
attending.
evening. Cheers.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night. Bye. Bye.